Hi, Angela,
Hi
and
there.
welcome you to join me and collaborate with me to have this conversation about your spiritual journey and your like. I know you are a self-development coach now, and
Yes.
also you are certified by PGI. So there are so many stories behind your bio. I can sense that. So please introduce yourself with us and let me know more about you.
Yeah. My name's Angela Goff. A lot of people know me as Angie Smart, but I got married a year ago, so some people don't know my new married name. And um, about, let's see, 25 years ago, I was experiencing debilitating back pain, and it had gone on for nearly 10 years. And as that 10 years kept building and building and building, doctors couldn't tell what was wrong with me. I was going to doctor after doctor after doctor and hoping that they would have answers for me. And none of them were coming up with any solutions to heal my back pain. And so I got really hungry to know so that I didn't have to live my whole life with back pain. And so I started researching and studying emotional health, metaphysics, the science of biology of belief. I got into emotional health and awareness, and um, and through all of these studies, I started to find some, like I call it a golden thread. I started to find things that were similar and helped me understand my thoughts and my feelings more, and that whatever I was thinking and feeling was going to be expressed through my body.
Mm.
So after about a year of really in-depth studying, I realized that I wasn't applying anything that I was learning. I just was taking in information. And
Mm.
so I started to realize that I needed to sit down with myself and put to practice some of the things that I was learning. So one evening I sat down and I started to do what I call mind stuff. I was visualizing and I was doing some mirror work. If you've ever heard of mirror work, standing in front of the mirror and, talking to yourself.
Question?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so then I uh, worked with myself one evening through the visualizing, and part of that visualizing was I was imagining myself walking pain free because I hadn't been able to walk without pain for almost a decade. And so as I was picturing myself walking pain free, I imagined what it would feel like to not have any pain. And the other thing that I did that night that a lot of people don't imagine doing is I wrapped my arms around my pain. I pictured my pain as its own, like, pain body. And so I wrapped my arms around it and hugged my pain and thanked my pain. I gave it gratitude for showing up because I started to understand that pain is just a messenger. What pain is doing is it's bringing a message to us that we're not happy, that we're not satisfied, that we're not aligned. And so as I did that, um, I went through all of these practices for about 2 to 3 hours that night, and then I just went to bed. And the next morning, I woke up pain free. And I thought it was a miracle because it had been almost 10 years of constant pain.
Mm.
And my husband looked at me and said, "It's a miracle. How are you not having any pain?" And so I started to realize, wow, I had really practiced some some tools that many shamans in indigenous cultures understand. Medicine women, medicine men know these things. A lot of Eastern medicine understands this, but how I was raised, we did not understand this. And so I started to kind of like hold that story inside of me. I was kind of afraid to share it because I thought people would not believe me. So
Mm.
I kept it for to myself for about 5 years, and in
Mm.
2012 I started to talk about it, and I started to share it in conferences and when I would speak publicly, and people started to come to me asking me about my back pain because turns out back pain is pretty common for a lot of people. And that back pain is, it's your life force energy coiled up at the bottom of your spine, waiting to rise so that you can be creative, that you can step into your own personal power. And so as mine rose, I felt like a miracle had happened. I felt like my life had all of a sudden become magical. And what it really was that I had realized that for years I hadn't followed my heart. I'd been following my mind, but not following my heart. I'd never been asking my heart, well, what do you feel? What do you feel like doing? It was always whatever made sense up in my head. So I learned in that experience to start getting in alignment with my head and my heart and allow them to talk to each other and get coherent. So the more that I thought a thought, I'd check in with my heart and say, well, do you feel good? Does that thought feel good? Because if the thought didn't feel good, then I knew that it was not a thought that was aligned with me and my higher power. So then I would dismiss the thought if it didn't feel good. And if it felt good, then I would move with that thought. And so since that time, I've been much more aligned, knowing that how I feel matters. Before that, it was always what I think, and that's all, And so now here I was always checking in with how I felt about something. And now the back pain was tied to a belief that I was with the wrong person. So I'd gotten married, and within 4 months, my back pain started. And I didn't know why I was getting this back pain, but I did know that my inner dialogue, my story that I was telling inside of my head was, you've married the wrong person. Why are you with this person? What are you doing? And so I started to wonder, where did this story come from inside of my head that I keep telling myself? And it took me back to memories in my childhood of when I heard my mom say, I should have married Zeke. It was a different guy that wasn't married to my mom. And I remember asking her a few years later, Mom, who is Zeke? Why do you talk about him? And she said, well, he was the love of my life more than 50 years ago. And I thought I would marry him, but he didn't ever ask. So I moved on and I wanted to have a family. So I married your dad. And I said, oh, okay. But inside of my head, and my heart, that didn't make sense. I thought to myself, well, why would she not marry somebody that, that she was in love with? And it scared me, thinking, what if that happens to me? What if I get married and I'm not, with the person that I love more than anything? And so that experience happened to me because we draw to us. We are like magnets, and we draw to us what we fear or what we love, not just what we love. And so I had drawn one of my deepest fears into my life and had made it real. So here I was, married to who I believed was the wrong person. And I was about 10 years into my marriage, and I healed my back spontaneously. And that's really, bringing it all full circle. That's really why I became a coach, because I started to understand that our health is completely connected to our thoughts and our feelings. And that if we're not aligned in thoughts and feelings, then we can end up with ill health. And I had ended up in this state of ill health. And so I started to understand that our cells and our beings, every single cell of our being, with positivity, it causes and promotes cell growth. But with negativity, it promotes and causes cell death or decay. And so for me, this really was a difference between creation or destruction of the body, right?
Yeah.
Creative thoughts or destructive thoughts is really what it came down to, and what we think we become. And here I was thinking these debilitating thoughts and therefore having debilitating results in my body. And I'd really learned firsthand that the body is an instrument of the mind, and that it does whatever the mind tells it to, right? And so I'd experienced that firsthand, and I became a coach, and I'd been coaching for a few years. And then in 2018, so I healed in 2006. It had fast forward 12 years. And I had been coaching for a few years. And I walked into a business meeting with a lot of people in the room. And there was a gentleman across the room, and my energy was pulled to him. Now, by this time, I actually had gotten divorced from my first husband. We decided to divorce and part ways. And so I was a single woman again, and I was at this meeting, and this gentleman's energy pulled me towards him, and just really my attention. He just pulled in my attention, and I thought, I think he's familiar. Do I know him? And I would sit there and try and figure it out if I knew him from somewhere. And after a little while, I couldn't figure it out. And then every week I had to go to this meeting every week for months and months. And 3 months later, he asked me on a date. So we were out on a date, and it was actually our third date. We'd gone out now 3 times, and he was asking me about my coaching business and why I do coaching. And I told him this story of spontaneous healing and how that spontaneous healing was like a near-death experience, that in that moment, I recognized my multidimensionality, that I realized I was the creator of my experience. And I'd also recognized that love was the answer, that there was no other way to get the results that we wanted other than to remove judgment and allow that life force energy that flows to and through us to just move through me. And my judgment was what kind of constricted it and stopped that flow of energy. And so I shared all this with him, and I shared with him the story of my mom, and my mom believing she was with the wrong person, and I believed I was with the wrong person, and that this story just kept getting passed down for generations, a paradigm. It's a thought that you think over and over again that's been passed down for generations. And my mom had had the same back pain as me. Her mom had had low back pain. So even the back pain had been showing up generation after generation.
Yeah.
And I told him how I heard my mom say I should have married Zeke. And when I got to the end of the story, he said, well, that's a strange story. And I said, it is, isn't it? And he said, Angie, yeah, it's really strange. He said, because my dad's name is Zeke. And I said, what? Your dad's name is Zeke? Like, how could your dad's name be Zeke? And we asked a few questions, and we figured out that his dad and my mom had been the love of each other's life more than 50 years before. And here we were on a date together, and we didn't know how we'd gotten connected. And yet I realized then that why he looked so familiar to me was that literally the cells of my being recognized him, because I'm a part of my mom.
Yeah.
He's a part of his dad. And
Yeah.
that portion of us that knew each other, in a previous generation, now recognized each other in this generation. And so when he said that, I said, oh my goodness, we're quantum entangled. And he said, huh. And I said, well, it's weird because I've been studying quantum physics for the last few months. And if I hadn't been studying it, I wouldn't know that that's what's happening here, but I did. And so that really brought me into this kind of deeper into coaching, because before that I was doing a lot of mindset coaching, and I still do. And but with that, it expanded into quantum physics and quantum entanglement, more specifically, helping people understand that connection that happens in quantum entanglement. And and the recognition that we recognized each other. And that's why he asked me out. There was a portion of him that recognized me. And that's why when I first saw him, I thought to myself, who is this guy? I think I know him. And so now I do some twin flame coaching, which is what quantum entanglement is. And really inside that type of coaching, it's all about balancing your masculine and feminine energy, balancing your right and left hemispheres of your brain, balancing your head and your heart, and really coming into balance that way, but also in balance with your partner and in union. So you both are balancing your energies. And when you're balanced, you're able to enter into this type of a relationship where you really experience ultimate freedom. It's a higher conscious love that allows each other to be completely who you are. No need to change for each other, or alter who you are, so that you make one another comfortable because you're already comfortable within yourself. So that's kind of in a nutshell, Lynn, to kind of get things going here. And there's probably a lot of questions, and we can dive deeper, but that's why I am where I am today and doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is such a, it's like a movie.
It is.
Yeah. You really, impressed me about the back pain part, about the, generational inheritance, right?
Mhm.
And the quantum entanglement, because usually I used to think about the twin flame, the concept, as
Mhm.
something very illusional,
Mhm.
because it's really difficult to confirm, or like you said, how to recognize, make sure this
Yeah.
is your twin flame. Or because I think sometimes we imagine a lot, we deceive ourselves a lot. So I
Yeah.
would like to use some love concepts to to feed the ego. This is what I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really interested about this part. So may I ask you a question about this back pain story?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned that your mother and your grandmother
Mhm.
has this back pain too.
Yeah.
And when you were young, you heard from your mother that she married the wrong person.
Yeah.
So you you took this memory subconsciously into your marriage. Is this
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
is this a conscious um, belief for you, or it's an unconscious belief for you, when you are having those back pains?
Yeah, so when I had the back pain, it was unconscious. I didn't know why the back pain was there, and I actually I wasn't paying attention my my thoughts. I wasn't paying attention to that story going on in my mind. I think,
Oh.
like, there's different teachers, and I think Bob Proctor used to say, if you have a record playing in your mind that just goes over and over and over, right?
Mm.
And it took a few years, probably more like 6 or 7 years, when I realized, wow, I sure think that a lot. I keep thinking I'm with the wrong person. Why do I keep thinking I'm with the wrong person? And that's when I started to recognize,
Mhm.
this is not a story I want to live with for the rest of my life. I don't want to think these thoughts over and over and over again. And so when I recognized that thought, then it became conscious, and then I realized, there's something going on here. But I still, at that point, once I recognized the story in my mind, I still didn't connect that was connected to the back pain for another year or two. And then I actually read a book that made it spark the memory of them both being connected.
Mhm.
And the name of the book is Feelings Buried Alive Never Die.
Really?
And Feelings Buried Alive Never Die.
Oh, buried alive, never die. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, and in that book, the author, she describes how every ailment in the body has a feeling associated with it. So what I did in the back of her book, I looked up in the glossary. You could look up different parts of the body, different ailments or pain points, and I looked up my sacrum because it was in my low back pain, or low back down by my tailbone. And so I looked at my sacrum, and right next to sacrum, it says, feeling you're in the wrong place or relationship or job. And I went, oh, I have been feeling like I'm in the wrong relationship. So she had narrowed it down for me, the author, and it allowed me to kind of dive in deeper to that, realizing that I feel like I'm in the wrong relationship. And then remembering that my mom felt like she was in the wrong relationship. And then, I kind of wondered if my grandma had too, because my mom's mom had that same back pain. And I thought, patterns just repeat.
Yeah.
That's what they do until we transmute them and change them.
Mm-hmm.
And so really it was, I call it emotional alchemy, that when we change the way that we feel, we're alchemizing our state of being into a new state of being.
Emotional alchemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a powerful story, because when I was about 30, like 5 years ago, I had that realization. I was aware of that I have been repeated my mother's relationship pattern, but it's too difficult to dig to dive deeper for what has happened for her or on her. So I try to find all the answers in my own life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's well, that's really powerful for us. It's like we could transform our destiny, or even the family destiny, by our own spiritual development, or the improvement of the awareness, right?
Yes.
So can you share some of your methods, or
Yeah.
the way you recommend to some simple steps of how to do that? I think this is quite it's quite essential for females.
Right. It really is. It's interesting that you say you recognized you were repeating the patterns of relationships that your mom had passed on to you, right? And one of the things that I've learned is that the womb is the place for creation, right? And so inside the woman, we all have a womb, but it's not inside the man. And so within the woman, or womb man, in the woman, we have a womb. And when my grandma, for instance, was pregnant with my mom growing inside of her womb, when we are little girls, even babies, we have eggs in us already. So I was also inside my grandma. I was inside my mother, inside of my grandma. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So could that be why it goes 3 generations? And I just have been shown this. It's hard to describe, but spirit just speaks to me all the time. And so I was shown that that's why I could look back 2 generations. And that's why oftentimes 2 or 3 generations are on earth at a time, so that we can learn from the generations that came before us with awareness, like you said. So oftentimes when something's right in front of our face, we can't see it. We just don't even notice it until we allow ourselves to expand in awareness. And that's why pain is the messenger. Sometimes we get so uncomfortable. It could be pain in the body. It could be emotional pain. And usually it only ends up in the body as a last resort if we aren't listening to our emotions and paying attention to how we feel. And before that, if we're not paying attention to what we're thinking. So thoughts are first, then our feelings, and then the body. For me, it had gone on so long because I wasn't paying attention to those uncomfortable thoughts and then those uncomfortable feelings. And so here I was now with the pain in my body. So one of my tools would be to start to study yourself like you are a case study, and watch in any area. You probably know this already, Lynn. Any area that you're not happy with, start to look at it closer. I like to say, pick it apart, like as an observer, kind of get up and over it, look at it like it's not a part of you, as well as you can, so that you can have a very logical mind to be able to look at it and not be too emotionally involved in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when we do that, oftentimes we can say, yeah, you know what? I am not happy with this. I'm not happy in my job, or I'm not happy in my relationship, or I'm not happy with my health. And some of these things, just because you're not happy doesn't mean you have to run the other way right away. You can start to look at it now with like a magnifying glass and say, well, what about it am I not happy about? Am I not happy? With every little thing, start looking at every little part of it. And when you do, you'll start to recognize what it is. But if you don't do that and you just try to make flamboyant decisions and just jump or run quickly away from your problems, you're just going to take those problems to another situation. So you don't want to just run away from your problems. And oftentimes we run away from our pain, our emotional pain, our mental pain, our physical pain. What you want to do is go into the pain. So like I said earlier, when I wrapped my arms around the pain, I went into it. I just said, hey, what are you trying to tell me? What message have you brought and delivered to me that I've been ignoring? And because I was finally listening, and I thanked the pain, and it was the first time in almost 10 years I hadn't hoped the pain would just go away. I actually just welcomed it and just sat with the pain. And that's when I heard and got all of these answers. I started to make all these connections and realized, oh, this has been going on for generations. And right now there's a lot of chain breakers. That's what I call it, is individuals who come into their family line and they're the one meant to break the chain that's not serving their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that too, especially when someone is like spiritually awakened to a certain extent. There is a series of changes happening in their life. You just
Yeah.
start your first step, and the next steps are like quite natural.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love that part. Hugging yourself. Mm,
Hmm.
I remember many years I met my spiritual master, and he's my mentor in
Hmm.
spirituality. The first time he was mentoring me something like some pay attention to your body, and I spontaneously naturally had this movement. I hug myself.
Yeah.
So when I heard that your story about hugging your back pain, I really can feel that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the way I try to describe it to individuals is if you're wishing for your pain to go away. Again, whether that's your mental pain, emotional pain, or physical pain, if you're wishing for it to go away and just stop without the awareness of what it's bringing you,
Mm,
you're actually wishing for a part of you to go away because it's a part of you. So I had to just, yeah, like wrap my arms around it and say, like it's a 4-year-old child, and just say, hey, what are you trying to tell me? What do you want my attention? What do you want? And listen to it like a child, like you said, and just love it, because then it would get the message out instead of me just keep shushing it and pushing it, into the background.
yeah. I love how you describe this situation. The pains or sometimes the sufferings, they are trying to
Mhm.
get your attention because
Yeah.
they have messages for you.